Hello guys, this is a video for our team on how to create and manage slates. And so I'm going to show you this now. I've already got NHL and NFL set up. There's another video showing you how to set a sport up in case we need to update or change sports in the future. But this is for sports that are already done. So if you ever get asked to set up a slate for one of our existing sports, this is how you're going to go about it. Sports slates are managed under the hype button because hype is tied to a slate specifically. So whenever you need to go create a new slate, you're going to be under or manage an existing slate. It's going to be under hype master slates. And you're greeted with a really simple screen where there's a place here at the top to add a new slate, and all of the existing slate management options are here. So I'm going to go ahead and go to NHL, and I'm just going to create a test slate. Hit create. Now, as soon as you created a slate, the slate's down here, we can interact with it. But something very important to note is this column here, the public private. If it's displays set private here, that means it's currently public and anybody on the outside can see it. If it says set public, then the slate is currently private, so it starts private. This way we can get our information in, some of our rankings in before we display this live, because one of the problems we often had is a slate would go live and people would be freaking out because, oh, there's not enough data, oh, this isn't updated, oh, is this the height, and they go nuts. So we keep it private. When we've got enough, it doesn't mean we have to wait till everything's in, but we want to get at least one or two sets of rankings in, get a dry run on the hype before we go to live. So just know that you start out in private mode. There's no panic once you create it. Oh my gosh, I have to hurry. Get everything ready. Then don't forget to set it public. So once you've created a slate, the next thing we have to do is import the player names. Now, we do this under manage players, and the only goal here is that we are trying to essentially get all of the player names into the system so that we can start our rankings, we can start our hype search. This process here does not put any salaries or roster gen data in, even though the process is very similar. So once we're here, we can see we don't have any players in, we don't have any pending players, and no total teams. So basically, we're going to go in and add players from every slate that's going to exist on this master slate. That's what's called a master slate. And if there's duplicates, it's okay. So you don't have to worry about duplicates being a problem or any of that. So normally, like if you were to go to, I don't think NFL's next week's stuff is up yet. Looks like it is. Okay. So like normally for like NFL, you could go to NFL Thursday, Monday, right? And this would have all the players for the entire set of slates. But sometimes you'll come to like NHL and they'll do something really weird where they'll have the early, the afternoon, the regular, and they don't really have an all-day slate. The cool thing about the way we have this set up now is when you go to DraftKings, we're not even messing with going into specific slates yet. You're basically going to go to lineups now, and you're going to click this upload lineup button right here, the second button. And this gives you a list of templates, and we've streamlined the import now to where you no longer have to download slate files and then download roster ID files and then upload roster. All you have to do is literally come in here. So I'm going to download the early and save it. I'm going to download the afternoon and save it. And because DraftKings keeps their names the same, make sure you change the name. Otherwise, you're going to overwrite the previous one, and then you'll have issues. All right. So we got all those three files saved. And then all I have to do is come in here to the import. Import one. You'll see we've got 198 players in there. And then I'll import another. And then we got 342. Go back to the DK import. We'll import the third. 45. Now again, remember, it's this screen. You got to go to lineups, upload lineups. This is the only screen you can get this from. If you go into the slate and try and do it that way, the file's not going to work. If you try and do the edit entries file, it's not going to work. This is the file you have to use on DraftKings. Once you've done the DraftKings ones, I will come into FanDuel, go to NHL. They only have two files here. So for the FanDuel portion, you're going to use this file at the top, the download player list, not the upload from CSV. Okay, it's the download player list, and FanDuel actually uses different file names for theirs, so you don't have to save it as a different one. And also make sure you pay attention. It always goes to their prime slate. So if there's like 4 slates here and you're not careful, it'll go back to the prime slate and you'll think you're on a different slate. So you click the other one, we got that one. Now we're on the prime slate. Come in here, same thing. Now, when we upload these, there may be a few changes, but there's not going to be a majority of them are already in there, right? And the sites have done a really good job of streamlining the names lately. So I will do DraftKings and FanDuel because sometimes there's players in one player pool that aren't a part of the other. But I don't mess with pulling a fantasy draft in for this part. So once we've done those imports for each of those files, right? Now we're in a position where we've got all of our player names in. At this point, if people wanted to do rankings, if our experts wanted to do rankings, they could do rankings. If we wanted to start running hype, we could start doing that. So this part of the process now kicks off the ability for us to start collecting data. But sometimes you will get a pending player that'll show up here. And what I'll do is I'm going to take one of these files really quick. And I'm just going to change a few things. Just 1 second here. All right. All right, so let's go to import. So I'm going to import this again just so you guys can see what this looks like. So I imported the file again. Now we have a pending player, right? What is that? So we come in here and we notice that Connor McDavid has a position of P and a team of AWK. Pending players are players that haven't matched a position that's in our system or a team that's in our system. This shouldn't happen often or really ever, but if for some reason it does, you can let me know. You can also go into the sports admin and go to NHL, and you can check the teams, because what's often happening is we've got abbreviations for every site: DraftKings, FanDuel, Fantasy Draft. If a player's abbreviation doesn't match up with that for the particular site, or in positions, same thing. We have positions for DraftKings, FanDuel, and Fantasy Draft. If it doesn't match one of these, it gets put in there because it doesn't know what to do with it. So normally you should never ever have any pending players, but if you do, you can always double check and see. We never know when the sites, unfortunately, are going to change their format. I mean, it can happen at any time, but the good news is when they do, if they change a team abbreviation, if they change a position abbreviation, we have the flexibility to come in and fix that. So I'm just going to go ahead and purge that player because we don't need it. So we've got our 514 here, right? Now our slate's set up. If you are an expert and you wanted to do rankings, now you can come into the master slate, and under rankings, there's manage rankings. And now you can see if I go to center, all the centers show up. If I go to wing, all the wings show up, defender, and so on, right? Now, I do realize some sites characteristic players as different positions and different formats and whatnot. And so, sometimes a guy will be small forward on one site, power forward on another site. That's okay, because at the end of the day, they're still going to have a consensus ranking. You're still going to get an idea of how much you like the person. Like, we don't have to get so retentive about it that we're like, oh my gosh, like we got to get him in the small forward, and then we got to get him in the power forward. We got to rank him. But again, our user base, they want to keep it simple. So don't stress out about that stuff. If you see a wing under center, you see a power forward under small forward, it really, in the grand scheme of things, does not matter. What matters is that they're getting ranked against other people in similar positions. So this is where you would go. We prefer to get at least 10 rankings in the GPP, 5 in cash, 5 in value. That gives us a nice consensus. Obviously, if it's a big slate, you can do a little bit more. If it's like a 2-game slate, you can do a little bit less. But this again is for the entire master slate, and it does not need. We don't have to change this after every single slate. But the goal is to set it and forget it, really. If you want to make tweaks as the week goes on, if injuries obviously change things, then obviously we can go in and change things. But we don't want to be in here changing this 55 times. There's just you can get ridiculous with it. So that allows that process to happen. But then the next thing we need to do is go in and manage salaries. And the salaries now are where we actually set up the actual slates that people do roster gen by. And again, the process is identical. You're going to go in and pull each slate, right, and download them. And I've already downloaded these, so I've already got that process done. And so now, essentially, you're going to go into salaries, and you're going to see an import screen. Now, I'll go back here real quick. You'll notice all of the salaries show up here just for reference sake, right? So if you click to manage salaries for hockey and you see NFL slates here, don't panic. This is just showing you the entire list just so you're made aware of it. But we go to DK import, and the name will already have the site appended to it, so you don't have to put DraftKings or whatever. So I would just put like early only, right, for the morning slate. We see that our test slate, that's important. We want to make sure we're on the right slate that we're importing for. Pop this file in, hit upload. And it looks like this is only showing the most. Oh, yeah, there it is. Okay, so here is our test slate, and we can see it's got 198 players. We have the ability to remove this slate if we need to. And then I would go in again, and for my afternoon slate, put afternoon. Upload salaries. And you just repeat this process for every slate that is created. Same thing with FanDuel. Same thing. You put a name in, early only, afternoon, pop your files in. For fantasy draft, I'll show you the lineups you're going to get is going to be under the My Lineup screen. You're going to hit Upload Lineups, Download Templates. And the great thing about this is, again, when there's multiple slates, none of these are going to have multiple slates here, but when there are multiple slates, they all show up right here. You can click download, click download, click download, and you've got them all down and you're good to go, right? And the great thing about this too is you can come back later and do this too. So like sometimes FanDuel will only post their main slate, and then you'll come back like right now for hockey. There's a 7 o'clock slate. Chances are sometime late this afternoon, they're going to post an 8 Eastern 2-game late night slate that's just not here right now. And so you can always come back around and add slates later if you need to, and it doesn't mess anything up. Once you've got your slates done and people have done rankings, then all you really need to do is collect hype, which we'll cover in a different video, and then set this to public. And once this is set to public, which I'm only going to leave for a few minutes, you usually have to refresh the menu one time. You'll see NHL test slate shows up. That's our master slate. And you'll come in, and of course we don't have any rankings in yet. We don't have any hype in yet. But you'll notice our salaries show up here. Here's our early only. And it'll pull in the data, and it's got the salary data in. And here's our afternoon. So that's really the process in getting basic slates set up. If you have any questions, let me know, and I will come back and do a later video on hype and getting a new sport set up.